All right, guys, when it comes to the Walking Dead universe, I feel like I have a lot to say. I'm a big fan of this franchise. I've read the comic books, I've watched the television shows, I made my way through Fear the Walking Dead, even though that show's rough. It's bad. Same thing with, World Beyond, all the major spinoffs, Dead City, Daryl Dixon, The Ones Who Live, Tales of the Walking Dead, just literally everything. And I feel like it's worth mentioning at least right now because apparently The Ones Who Live has been a major hit over on Netflix, which admittedly makes a lot of sense. A lot of people who stuck with the franchise after the whole Negan and Glenn incident were pretty much done with the series after Rick Grimes was taken off into the sunset by the CRM. And even though this show itself is a little bit old, we've talked about this on the channel before, the idea that AMC just wanted to get rid of The Walking Dead off of Netflix. They canceled the main show, not because of actors leaving, not because of a lack of source material or anything else. It was this lifetime contract that AMC had with Netflix that allowed for Netflix to have the rights or the streaming rights to The Walking Dead so long as The Walking Dead was still airing new episodes. And during the streaming wars and bubbles and all this other stuff of the pandemic era, and that everybody was really rushing to have premium streaming content, AMC decided, hey, it would be better to get rid of The Walking Dead entirely, but continue it through various spin-offs and other legally distinct things that aren't The Walking Dead and put it on our own platform. And then once The Walking Dead had literally been dead and gone for however many years, then they would be able to take the entirety of the 11-season show and put it on their own streaming platform, along with all of these spin-offs and everything. And then maybe bring everything together to a culminating 12th season-like series where all these characters come back together and you can end the story, or at least that specific phase of the story. It all made sense and it was all going well and according to plan until the streaming bubble burst. And Netflix decided, hey, we won everything. And everyone just decided, yeah, Netflix pretty much won the streaming wars. Let's put everything we have or have been making exclusively for our own streaming networks onto Netflix, and hopefully that causes enough cultural conversation, as it were, to bring people over to our streaming networks so they can see these shows as they come on. The thing is, The Ones Who Live, or something like Daryl Dixon or Dead City, which didn't make as big of a splash, those shows went to Netflix. People started watching them because they're not subscribed to AMC Plus like myself or maybe you watching this, and they're starting to learn about it. So the show pops off in popularity and maybe is bigger than it ever was over a year since it was released. It's just the nature of the beast. This is something that we are going to have to look forward to for the foreseeable future. That said, because The Walking Dead at least is on everyone's minds and is taking in some major social media acolytes right now, the idea that AMC, Scott Gimple, and all the people creatively involved or financially involved with the continuation of the Walking Dead universe, the idea that they're now rethinking, retooling, and figuring out the next phase of this franchise makes a whole lot of sense. One of the biggest rumors right now is that Ross Marquand and Seth Gilliam, who are Aaron and Gabriel respectively, that rumor of them putting together a spinoff for those specific characters to go off and do whatever they want, those rumors are starting to pile up again. And the recent one is, not only are they going to do the show, they've been developing it for the last couple of months, if not years, but they're gearing up to start producing and filming it set in Canada in 2025. And quite frankly, I'm of two thoughts here. One, I really like Aaron as a character. I think Ross Marquand is a very good actor, and I would really love to see him explored more, especially if he is the main focal point, because even though Aaron's character was a mainstay since season 5 of the show, he was never really given a ton of stuff to do, even though I feel like Ross Marquand is an actor, the versatility of him, and I'm interested to see more of this character and what he can do if he is the main focal point within any given series. Same thing with Seth Gilliam as Gabriel, one of the best character arcs in the entire show, from going from where we meet him in season 5 to where he is at the end of season 11, just a powerful and very capable type of character. His connection, or at least a little bit of understanding about the CRM before Rick Grimes and Michonne come back, could be something worth exploring there. But the idea to me is, if it's going to be set in Canada, there's 2 directions of the show that I think, or at least one direction I think, that makes a little bit of sense. One, you have the PPP cards, which everything with the PPP cards either points to the CRM and Canada, because Tales of the Walking Dead brought back the PPP cards and dealt a lot with Montreal. So if you're going to have someone like Aaron and Gabriel go to Canada for whatever reason, it would make sense to set that after Rick and Michonne come back with the CRM, and then they have the ability to get from Ohio to Canada, which, would still be possible, but would be difficult. And then considering the fact that Aaron's character was a bit of a diplomat, him and Gabriel could go to this community and get involved with them, like bring the CRM military or the Commonwealth military, whatever it is, to Montreal, and then they end up kind of being swallowed up into the bigger conspiracy there, this new community that poses a threat to not only the Commonwealth but the CRM, and maybe even builds the bigger threat for the entire universe, which ultimately would culminate with Rick Grimes, Michonne, Carol, Daryl, Maggie, Negan, Aaron, Gabriel, and everybody who's left coming together to stop a main threat, which is something that I personally really want. I know a lot of people who are really obsessed with the recent success of The Ones Who Live are upset that there's a considerable portion of the fan base who thinks we don't really care about the love story between Rick Grimes and Michonne. We really care about the fact that the CRM was built up over the course of 7 or 8 years in the main show and across multiple spinoffs, and the big threat that posed to our survivors or the entire world of The Walking Dead in general was taken out in the matter of one episode by these 2 characters, simply because them working together is just such a powerful force that they literally can do that. It just didn't make sense. It was rushed, and one of the biggest detriments of that show, at least in my opinion. They did kind of the same thing when it came to Daryl Dixon, where you were building up this militia force that was trying to evolve the walkers and use them as a military aspect that can go on boats between, Europe and America and all these other places. That was interesting. I would love to have seen that explored, but they did the same thing. They kind of shooed it away and did nothing really noticeable or specific with it. And that's what I'm saying about this idea of an Aaron and Gabriel show. I am not one of those fans who thinks there's no reason to do this show. These 2 characters are not popular enough, or they're not interesting enough to carry their own series. I disagree with that. I like both of these characters, and I would love to see them explored even more. That being said, the universe itself has done very little in order to establish why a universe is needed. The idea that these characters' stories continue, at least in my opinion, isn't enough to keep me interested going forward. I like Daryl and Carol. I love to see them back together, and I can't wait to see them try and attempt to get home. Seeing Rick and Michonne get back together and have their happy ending was satisfying, at least from that perspective. And, seeing the continued rivalry or weird relationship between Maggie and Negan is fun, if not digging up old wounds and figuring out just a way of extending a piece of drama that I felt was well regarded and taken care of in the original series. That being said, each of these spinoffs is better than they have any right to be, but as a whole, nothing's really coming together, and there's no real reason to have an extended universe worth of content if the only intention here is for continued stories of survival. There needs to be an overall threat, something to come together, and an idea of why all these characters were worth following in the first place. If there isn't, then, quite frankly, I'm just going to start losing interest, and I know a lot of y'all are as well. And that's kind of why I'm saying that the PPP cards in Canada, these two characters and their diplomatic mission with the CRM or Commonwealth into a new area that we're not really familiar with, all of that kind of makes sense, and I would love to see that. But quite frankly, given the way that all of this is going, I just kind of think that it's not going to happen that way. It's just going to be a story with Aaron and Gabriel trying to survive, doing their thing, doing their job, or having some kind of issues with each other. And then it all kind of boils down to something that they are able to solve themselves, and nothing of substance is done, finished, or, tied into what's happening with Daryl Dixon, what's happening with Maggie and Negan, where does this even fit in the timeline? Do they know that Rick and Michonne are back? All that other stuff. You can see how we're left hanging on so many plot threads that just never come together and are endlessly frustrating for the people who are paying attention, which, if you're going to do a show with Aaron and Gabriel, it's for the fans, man. People do not care. The vast majority of people don't care. They wanted to see Rick and Michonne get back together because Rick was the main character for the show for the first 9 seasons. They do not care about these two particular characters unless you're the type of person like myself who was able to sit through season 4 through 8 of Fear the Walking Dead because Morgan was a main player in that show. Hey, the guy from the very first episode, that's the type of character that we want to see have a happy ending. And, nothing really comes of it. And then, because you're that big of a fan, you watch Dead City, Daryl Dixon, The Ones Who Live, even Tales of the Walking Dead, because that show was supposed to have stories for characters that we hadn't seen before. And even though they did that with Alpha, still, it didn't really come together. It was a big waste of time, and now that show might even be canceled, even though they did kind of announce a season 2, where they literally stopped talking about it and they've stopped promoting it and everything. Huge, massive failure for a lot of reasons. Maybe we can talk about that in the future. Again, I think Aaron and Gabriel are very interesting characters, and there's ways of exploring this spinoff that not only look at different areas of the Walking Dead universe that are worth exploring and are visually interesting, but at the same time, you can start building up and tying off various reasons why spinoffs are happening, why characters and situations are being developed, and how various things have worked around the world to bring everything together to some kind of culmination of the story. But we haven't seen it, and I'm not entirely sure we're going to see it. The reason I'm talking about this is no one's really been talking about this. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but we have been hearing various things over the last couple of years that at least there was some discussion about an Aaron and Gabriel spinoff, and now they seem to be coming back around to it. So tell me in the comments section what your thoughts are on this. Quite frankly, I don't know, but I'm interested in it. Are you?